What's up, everybody? Anthony here from the Fourth Man Podcast. Appreciate everyone who's tuning into this week's episode, the Championship Edition preview here. And I just wanted to start the episode off by saying I appreciate everyone who's rocked with us from the beginning, but appreciate everyone who's stuck with us throughout the season. I also just wanted to say I apologize for the lack of episodes this year as, kind of the league continues to grow and we try to grow this platform. It's not to say that I'm trying to get away from any kind of podcasts or any kind of interviews. I'm obviously trying to always bring new interviews as well as recurring guests that people love to hear from. But I definitely feel like there's an added responsibility just on my own personal end of wanting to make sure that I'm getting the most reports out of any news, roster transactions, anything that's going on with the league, trying to highlight players and make sure that we're putting together highlights and posts as well as just doing some behind-the-scenes work for the league itself. And so that's on me. Obviously personal life, everyone's got a busy personal life. That's kind of factored into this summer. This is actually, and I think I mentioned it, but this is actually the first time in 6 years that I haven't even been doing a Big 3 game or a Big 3 event this summer. So it's been pretty wild. I just want to say I appreciate everybody. And to give context on this, I really wanted to make sure that, one, we had a really solid show. So shout out to both Amir and Mark Ray for hopping on. And two, I wanted perspective from each side of both the teams playing here. So you'll kind of see both of that. I feel like both really great conversations on what they've done this summer and what they're trying to accomplish ultimately. And obviously there's a lot at stake here playing in the championship between two teams that have been the best in the league all summer long. And so really excited for it. I just wanted to preface by saying appreciate everyone who's continued to rock with us, even when we're a little bit inconsistent from a podcast basis. And from a week-to-week episodes, I know I've done a couple Instagram lives, but in my opinion, that's just me kind of trying to fill in best where I can. So I appreciate everyone that's rocked with us. I'm always trying to bring interviews to every episode. And to be honest, a lot of the podcasts, as much as I love to give my opinion, I feel like it's more entertaining when there's someone from the actual league itself that can talk and give insight a little bit more. And so that's why I always try to make sure I have a guest on. And when I don't, it makes it to where I don't necessarily want to record an episode just giving you my thoughts and opinions on everything going on. That being said, I won't waste any more time. I appreciate it. Let's get into our interviews with both Mark Gray from Miami 305 and Amir Johnson from the Chicago Triplets. Thank you, guys. Welcome back into the Fourth Man Podcast. This is the championship edition as we head into the final week of the Big 3 season. The 2025 championship is Sunday. We got the Miami 305. We got the Chicago Triplets. And we're honored to be joined by Chicago Triplets player Amir Johnson, also two-time champion in the Big 3. Amir, again, appreciate the time, and welcome to the show.
Yes, sir, man. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. I really appreciate it. You've quietly kind of built out one of the best resumes and collected hardware across the past 5 years since you joined the league in 2021. I was kind of looking at some of your past games, and as you kind of showed out here last week against the Riot where you put up 13-7, I've kind of noticed that's kind of the trend is like all season long you're just kind of humming along, and then the games where it matters most is when you put up your best performances of the season. I wasn't sure if you were aware. Do you know that if you win this weekend and pick up your third ring that you'll be tied for most rings in this league's history?
No, I had an idea. I think James White is up there also.
Yep.
I think, I played with him for a few years, so I think he believes he has 3 rings. So, yeah.
Yeah,
that's an honor.
You'll have 3 rings alongside your former teammate who you won a couple with. Only got to go back-to-back, so pretty cool. I mean, quietly just doing it. Looking back at when you first joined the league in 2021, I would love to just kind of know, like, what made you want to join the league at that point in time, especially coming off a year where they didn't have a season. And then, 2, what were your expectations going into the league and kind of reflecting on them now? This is kind of a loaded question, but kind of reflecting on it now, do you feel like you've met those expectations?
Well, first and foremost, man, I really love basketball. And I think I've said this in, like, previous interviews before, like any chance, I can get to go out there and compete and play is a real true blessing. And if I can go out there and do it and play at a high level, I'm gonna give it a shot. So, basketball has been my life. Um, been playing it forever. I played in the NBA, 15 years, 17 pro career. Again, this is what my fifth year in the BIG3, and now I coach in the NBA for the Clippers. So, again, any chance I can be around the sport and actually play and compete is just a true blessing for me.
Yeah, it's amazing. So entering 2021, I guess not a ton of expectations outside of the fact that you obviously want to win. You're
Hmm.
having the chance to play in your third title game. You never missed the playoffs. Do you feel like you've met those expectations? And was there anything else you were hoping to accomplish while being in this league that maybe you've already done or still looking to do?
Just to compete, just to play the sport I love, and of course, any chance you get opportunity to win, um, I'm for that. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I'm constantly learning about the game. Um, I watch a ton of film. I like watching players. I like being a part of the BIG3. It's no rocket science to it. It's just simple, man.
Yeah,
I just love to play, and I just love the game.
fair enough. That's valid.
Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes when you're just passionate about something, that's all. That's all it is. That's all you
for
need.
sure.
So as mentioned before, you were part of those trilogy teams that were back to back. It's the only team to ever go back to back. There's far and few between players in this league that have won multiple titles, one title, let alone multiple titles. Is there the past couple seasons you've been on a couple different teams? Tri-State last year, this year with Chicago. Is there anything that you've like taken away from those trilogy teams that you won with that you've tried to implement into this year's team, being a little bit younger? Some of the guys being a little bit newer to the league in comparison to your resume and kind of things like that.
Well, one thing I can say, um, it's the BIG3 is just more to just kind of like the one-on-one play. It's real strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the trilogy teams that I've been on, we had some great players, some good vets that are now coaches. We and I think between Jared Jack coaches and James White, and not alone everybody having a great basketball IQ, that there was a lot of strategy that went into those championships. Instead of just having guys, just go one on one, we actually had like set plays and strategy.
Yeah.
And I think that got us those wins. Just like with this team, there's been some games where Montrez, took over and showed his one-on-one skills, or Nazir Kaur helped us out. But again, you have to have a little bit of organization, to the game, and it can get out of hand if you just have one or two guys just jacking up shots. And again, I think that's what makes a BIG3 team good. It's not one player out there. There are three players on the floor, and if you can have a good game plan and some strategy, it gets you here to the finals.
Yeah, fair enough. Albeit, Jared Jack's season is pretty underrated, and he took a lot of shots that year. You guys probably set him up for a lot of shots, but he had some pretty crazy games throughout that whole
He
year.
did. He really did, man. And you can't really have like a lot of people. Like, you have to have somebody that does something different other than shoot. You have to have a guy that, okay, I'll get the rebounds, or I get the tip outs, or I'll set the screens for you, or I'll play the defense. Like, you have to have a real, solid team that understands, okay, like, this is how we can win. Even though a lot of guys want to showcase their skill, and that they probably didn't get a chance to their pro career, and then they're showing a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more. But when it comes to winning, it takes a little sacrifice.
Yeah.
And as long as the team wins, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I feel like there's no one that embodied that better, probably than your old teammate and the guy we were just talking about, James White, who felt like he was on a few of those teams where he had to do some of the dirty work and was more relied upon to rebound, set screens, maybe hit shots in the corner. So
Absolutely.
pretty cool to see it come full circle. Entering the season this year, obviously a new team. You got drafted in the top 10. You obviously played with Jay Rich and Dr. J and Coach Steve Mix last season with
Mhm.
Tri-State, where you guys were a game short of making the finals. But entering the
Yeah.
season, there was a little bit of doubt on your squad as a whole. I mean, kind of looking at some of the early season power rankings, you guys were ranked fifth. And I know that the construction of the team has changed a little bit throughout the season, but what do you think people's like? And maybe this is a tough question to ask. I'm asking you to think for other people, but what do you think people's perspectives of this team were? That I guess the better question would be, what made you confident in this team that you guys were better than the fifth ranked team out of 8 teams in this league?
Well, let me talk a little bit about the construction of the team that we
Yeah.
had. I got drafted, so the years I've played in the BIG3, I've always been a captain.
Mm-hmm.
So I never had to go in the draft. So I went to the combine, um, did well in that, and got picked up by the Triplets, which were Tri-State. We had a constructive team put together with Kimba being a captain. He ended up getting hurt, and I guess he couldn't play for us. Um, so that moved me into a captain spot, replacing Kimba, and we ended up picking up Nas Core, which became a big help for us. Trez was already a captain; we had him, and Jay Rich, and then we had Chris Allen that we picked up, which is a great player, elite. And you should do definitely an interview with him just to kind of check out his
Oh, we got
background.
him on the show before. Yeah,
Okay,
he's
okay.
solid. Yeah, he's solid.
Solid player for sure.
Yeah.
So that was our team. And then Jay Rich ended up getting hurt in Boston, which we end up picking Brandon Moss, aka Body Bag. And so, this season has been ups and downs. I knew we were a great team. We had a rough loss at the beginning against Detroit Amps, where we lost by the buzzard, but the way we performed, we were like, okay, we're solid. We know what we have. We just got to play smarter. And me being a coach, watched a lot of film, watched things we can do. 3-on-3 is tough. When you're only playing half court and you're not getting warmed up and down. So we had to work on having better starts. Um, and it just came down to a lot of coaching, a lot of players stepping up for us, and we've been able to put together a solid season. And again, we just have a great group.
Yeah.
It couldn't happen with the guys we had, especially with the guys that we had injured. We still keep a lot of those guys in the group message, to kind of give their 2 cents. And again, can't take no credit, man. It's all a team effort.
Yeah, a lot of good continuity. It sounds like got some vets, you got some young guys, got a ton of experience with your coaches. So it seems just like a good, solid, all around group. And you kind of alluded to it, just being a coach now, and your approach to the game and watching a little bit more film. But I kind of want to expand on that. How much has being a coach, and you've kind of done this for a little while, and maybe even more so, like you were a player with the G League Ignite, and I'm sure you were doing a little bit of
Mhm.
coaching for those young guys. How much has it changed your approach and being a teammate, and then also in the way you see the game as a player?
Big time. It really opened my eyes, man. As a player, um, I didn't watch as much as film as I do now. Like my vets, when I was with Detroit Pistons in '05, they were more like just work harder than the next guy. You ain't even got to worry about it. As long as you working harder than him, nobody can stop you. That was basically, that Detroit rough team, like we're gonna bust everybody ass.
Yeah.
No matter who it is or who's on the other side of that film. So, I didn't really look into film. Now that I watch film like on a daily basis to help other players, man, it's so much helpful. Like you don't know a player like, Kelly Oubre is left-handed, but he drives right to go left. Like just a bunch of detailed stuff that was like, wow, that could have definitely helped me throughout my career, if I would have locked in uh, on film and breaking down strategies or plays or defense, which I do now,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a big respect for it. Um, I didn't realize, like, on the coach's side, they put in as much as work as the players, if not more, trying to get a game plan together.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect, and it has my interest peaked. Um, Not only learning just offensive plays, defensive plays, what can make a player better, what helps him get to his left hand, and what helps him get to his right hand. Like, I like breaking all that stuff down just on the fact of watching, game after game and film after film.
Yeah, definitely. And I like you said, like loving basketball isn't rocket science, and the game itself is not something that like you necessarily need to reinvent the wheel to be successful. But as a coach, kind of game planning like on schemes offensively and defensively, do you
Mhm.
do you enjoy kind of the experimental piece that can come with like the different sets you can run and especially in a half court setting and the ways you can do things to maybe even open up like a 4-point shot, or we don't see a ton of lobs in this league, but the ability to maybe do that. Or is there a lot of like things that you like to experiment with, whether you implement it or not?
For sure, it's almost like a chess match. I guess the thing I like to see most is like switch in lineups and do different actions to see what the other team or how the other team adjusts to it, and on top of that, have a counter to that. So it's kind of like chess to me. You make a play or you make a sub or you want to play or you do ISO for Trez, which I'm setting a flare, and now you have a big on a small, and you have a big guard and Nazir on top, like stuff like that, man. It's just like a chess move, and then you see how they adjust, and they make subs, and then we make subs. I think that's the fun part. Um, as far as plays, man, in the big three, everybody can score.
Mm-hmm.
You have your plays when you actually need a three or need a four, but you don't look too much in plays because everybody can go get a basket. It's more finding mismatches and defensive strategies.
It's funny you bring that up because I guess even before we get into that, you guys have won your past five. You guys have basically won every game since the tough loss to LA.
The last three games we won by 10.
Yeah.
So we've been playing pretty
You've been
solid.
playing pretty well, I was going to say. And even with
Yeah.
that game against LA, it definitely seemed a little fluky at the time. It was kind of like what just happened kind of thing. Um,
Mhm.
One thing I noticed though, like within this time when you guys beat LA and the championship game or I'm sorry, in the playoff game, was the approach was a lot different. Obviously you were out there a little bit more. You made sure that you were guarding Dwight, but you guys
Mhm.
did a lot of those switching lineups where you made sure that you guys had the right matchups, and even if there was a switch at any point, the matchup or the mismatch wouldn't be too crazy or anything like that. Um, I guess like going into that game, like what was some of the things that you were hoping to do differently? And obviously you executed on it, getting a win. But do you feel like you guys did a good job of following that game plan, or
Sure. I
yeah?
actually stole some plays from Denver because we had a series against Denver, versus us with the Clippers. So
Uh-huh.
I took some plays from them. And one of the hardest plays Denver runs is the inverted pick and roll with Jokic and Jamal Murray. So I thought Trez and Nas can do that. It depended on if the White was guarding me or guarding Trez, which he guarded me, but it still kind of worked out because you had a small guarding Nazir, which got the switch on to Trez,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was setting the flare on Nas, which kind of switched Dwight on Nas. So that was our strategy, just to kind of you know get Dwight on mismatches on every pick and roll, because when I've watched the film of their games,
He
he
did a
was
really
always
good
in
job.
a drop coverage. I think I think the Ball Hogs exposed them on that in trilogy. I actually told Nick, man, he should have went small. Should have went small because Dwight was just all out of coverage, which opened it up for us. But again, that's the coaching strategy you use and the chess pieces that you use if you watched our games. And we're definitely gonna have something up the sleeve
Yeah.
for Miami coming up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you watch basketball, you'll be able to tell right away, what we're doing or what our strategy is.
I'm interested because yeah, that first time around, I did feel like Dwight did drop a ton in the pick and roll. Even like on both sides of the pick and roll, it felt like he was being pretty effective. Whether he
For
was
sure.
as a screener, diving to the rim, but even like you said,
Yeah.
defensively, he was doing a lot of drop coverage, and it felt like I don't know if
Yep.
adjustments necessarily weren't being made. He was just really locked in. It felt like, and it felt like he
Now
was
on
just
our
having a good
on
game.
for sure on our defensive side, what we did is we basically jammed Dwight.
Mm-hmm.
So they set pick and rolls high, like above like the 4-point line. So what I did is I ran up with him and basically jammed him so
Couldn't
the player
roll.
can go under the screen. And so I jammed him a couple times where I think we got into a big tussle during the game because he was pissed that he couldn't roll because I was holding him up.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
And,
they called a foul on him on one of them, I think, too,
yeah,
because you were
like
standing your
that
ground.
was yeah, exactly. That was the strategy, just to jam him, just to take away his rolls and his lobs. And we took away that, and I think they made a couple shots at the 2 point, well, a couple twos, which we were living with. We
Yeah,
threes kill us, but that was our strategy, just to go on the pick under the pick and roll, which he couldn't roll, and it worked out for us.
yeah. Were there conversations, kind of going back to that first matchup with them and the loss? You guys have done. You guys have played
Oh yeah,
outstanding
we
since then.
we had for whatever reason, man, we had no energy. Um, I think we started with Body Bag, Brandon Moss.
That was his first game with you guys too, just for context. But yeah,
Yeah, that was the first game, and Dwight pretty much buried him. So I was like, okay, next game I have to start and give him a bigger body. Um, we thought initially Brandon would have just like super energy over him, so that we went with that lineup, and it just backfired on us, and we definitely came prepared
yeah.
for the game in Dallas.
I would say so. I mean, all the wins have been super impressive. Honestly, it's really interesting. Bringing up Brandon and then even bringing up Nas. Like I've talked to these guys on numerous times, had them on the pod. Obviously, Nas has something to prove in his own right. Again, playing his former team in the
Mm-hmm.
championship, but kind of looking at their resumes as a whole, I feel like outside of the people that really support them, sometimes they're a little bit overlooked, or even guys in the NBA, might think one way or the other because they don't have necessarily the pedigree or the resume that they have, right? But for you, you've got a chance to play with them now. Obviously, you're on a team
Mm-hmm.
that's like winning a ton and have won like 4 or 5 straight and are playing in the championship. Like, and even from a long time player's perspective, a coach's perspective, like what are some things about both Nas and Brandon's games that like make you think like, oh yeah, like these guys are really good players. Like I enjoy playing with them, and that like maybe the average person like myself doesn't necessarily see or respect about it.
Well, they can play basketball, point blank. Period. They're hoopers.
Yeah.
Um, Brandon is super athletic. Nas is super skilled. They are just like hoopers. They're real ballers, and they like to play anywhere and everywhere, as you can see on their YouTubes and all that. They like, I guess, where me and Trez, come from. We just put a little bit of organization to it because we have played at the highest level,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all you really need. Like that, plus just a little bit of organization and being in the right spots, or knowing how to get over screens or get under screens, and having somebody to talk to you the whole way during the whole game. And I feel like that just helps us win games. Again, they can score any way and anyhow. Like the big three is perfect for them.
Yeah.
It just when it comes down to some organization at times where we need them to maybe just box out or go get a rebound this possession.
Hmm.
All right, well, when you get it, attack right away or just go full speed downhill past Mario or whatever the case may be.
I think,
Just need somebody to kind of speak up and say that.
yeah, I think that's a really underrated aspect about this league is the amount of veteran leadership and experience in this league. Like, I do feel like, and I know they play a lot of one-on-one basketball. There's a ton of shit talking and all that stuff, but it does feel like those guys, regardless of playing in this league, playing at a high level, there's still some discredit that goes in there. And to me, part of the advantage of playing in this league is not only the exposure but also too like the veteran leadership. I mean, like the coaches, is one of the top 75 players of all time.
Right.
But even like
Right.
someone like Coach Mix is like, I mean, I think he's a super underrated, under the radar kind of coach in this league.
Nah, for sure, man. You should see his scouting reports, man. He has it emailed and printed out for us, man.
Wow.
He breaks it down. I read every one, man. He's definitely locked in.
Yeah, I
But
just
man,
I just
that's
always
just
hear
cool.
rave reviews about him. That's all I was gonna say about Coach Mix.
He's definitely there for a reason, man. But that's just it comes to points just to having like good vets around. You even see him around the NBA. Like they had great vets in the finals with James Johnson and Caruso on the other end. Like it's always good to have somebody that's in the locker room on the bench, helping out or just having a little bit of organization to it when shit gets hectic. Somebody's, keeping their cool, when their back's against the wall. And we definitely have a lot of vets in this big three.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of making sure y'all keep your cool against Miami. I know there's a lot of what's it called? I don't want to say beef necessarily.
Trash
There's a lot of trash
talk.
A lot of history between the two teams. You guys have just recently beaten them by 9, and obviously I'm not going to ask you guys to spoil your game plan. Trez made that loud and clear at the press conference he had, but I would never ask that anyways. I more so want to ask the question around, like, what did you like about what you guys did the first time around when you beat them by like 9 or 10 points? And I guess to piggyback off that, like, and don't take this as a dumb question, it's more so I just want to hear your perspective. What makes a team like Miami very challenging to play against?
Well, I like the fact that we didn't feed in too much of the extra stuff, they bring and the talking and all that. You had a little bit back and forth with Nas and Lance, but he stayed locked in and kept playing. Same thing with Trez, and I think that part just turned him up a little bit more. Like I believe this game is going to be super competitive. Both teams really want to win. We both have a chip on our shoulder just from even making it this far, especially with the ups and downs, that we had with both teams. Again, I don't want to spoil the strategy, but we're gonna, if you rewatch the game that we had against them and see some of the stuff we did, you can kind of get an idea of what we're going to do. Again, we're just going to put counters to everything that we did. And I can't tell it all after that. You just have to see them someday.
That's understandable. That's understandable. I'm trying to ask in a way where you didn't spoil, but I know it's hard to do so. So no worries with there. It should be, honestly, I think it's going to be one of the most talented group of people in one championship. Like, if you even think about the hardware in just this league alone, the accolades people have won in this league, a ton of all-stars, players of the years, and MVPs, defensive player of the years, rookies of the years, whatever.
For sure. The league has gotten better and better and better every year since I've been in. I just hope it keeps on rising.
What's like, I would love to hear like just your 2 cents on like the biggest differences from 2021, your first year, just to now, even though we went from 12 to 8 teams. What's been the biggest like change, and maybe just on the court stuff and maybe even off the court?
or just of getting the players that are have joined the league, um, the strategies, the owners now, the competition to play. I don't know what else I could say, man. It's
Yeah.
you can tell like this year, like everybody was on their toes, like, oh shit, like, we got Dwight Howard up next, or
Mm-hmm.
no, I gotta play, you gotta be locked in for the week, we gotta play Beasley, or like everybody was pretty much locked in. Like you could not be ready to play for the weekend because you were gonna get embarrassed. And I think players were really working for the summer or for the week to be prepared for the games. Not saying they weren't doing it in 2021, but it just
No, we know what you're saying. We
it's
know what
just
you're
a
saying.
it just feels like a different feeling, um, especially in this year. Like, okay, everybody's ready, locked in.
Yeah. I'm excited to see even like a city like Chicago, who, you guys played in your hometown the first week, but I'd like to see them, in year two. Just I'm sure that as the league continues to grow, that fan base will continue to grow. So
Yeah. And we
yeah,
want to get Doc his first chip, man. Like
you got to.
we
The
we, we
trophy's
need we
named
need
after him.
we need to get him one, man. Dude is too smooth, man, not to have a
uh,
ring in this league.
nah, 100%. Um, I,
And Steve, yeah.
yeah, I want to real quick ask about Jay Rich, because this is just through a social media perspective, so take it for what it's
Hmm.
worth. But I know that he's taken a lot of time to ensure that he's ready to play every single year, and injuries are just a part of the game. Unfortunately,
Right.
got injured this year, but he still seems very locked in with you guys and this team. How much are you guys talking to him on a daily basis, and just like how much has his support and his leadership still been like attributing to like the team's success, like even being out of the lineup?
Big time. Again, I said he was in our group message. He's constantly texting us stuff, constantly congratulating us on the game. Hopefully he's there in Orlando because we told him to come, so we might see him out there. I know his son just got drafted there, so they should pull up on us, which is going to be super dope.
Yeah,
Um, Again, ultimate vet. Um, Again, he's still on this team, still part of this team. So we look for his uh his 2 cents and his knowledge at
yeah,
all times.
yeah. Need to make sure he gets his ring for sure. If the chips
Absolutely.
stack the way they should. Um,
Uh,
yeah. Well, cool. Well, candidly, on my end, I wasn't sure about last week if you guys would be able to get it done. So that's on me. I just want to take responsibility for that. So best of luck
Yeah,
to you guys this Sunday. As what was it? As Shaq said, I wasn't familiar with your game just in terms of the different schemes and counters that you guys were gonna have. So
for sure.
I'm looking forward to the game. The last thing I just want to ask you real quickly is, and super random, but I randomly came across Terrence Ross highlights last night, and
Hmm.
I saw I saw his dunk in Toronto on Fareed, and didn't realize you were pretty much first row for that
Yeah,
dunk right there in front of
He actually blocked me first, so I went up for a dunk, and Fareed blocked me, and
it.
somehow Terrence Ross got it and dunked him, and I was just so hyped for that because I was pissed. First of all, he blocked me, but he had another guy that jumped higher than me, so he ended up finishing it.
That's so crazy. Yeah, I saw you there, and I was like, oh man, I didn't realize he was like front row for it. But that being said, I got to ask you, as the
Uh,
league continues to grow, is there anybody that you would love to see in this league? In the coming years, someone like a Terrence Ross, or just anybody that's you've played with in the past that you'd like to see in this league in the future?
I would love to see
Yeah.
Lou Will play. I know guys said that a lot. Jamal Crawford. Hopefully, we get Demarcus in here. Demarcus Cousins. That'll be a good battle of bigs
Oh yeah.
right there. A skill big. Um, T Ross would be though. I don't know. I'm not sure if he would come hoop, but T Ross would be cool to see and come play.
Yeah. Ton of highlights for sure. I feel like it's interesting. We talk a lot about like the guards and wings in this league, but like, should this not just be like a big man's playground in a sense, like getting to play the way, you
Man,
know?
it, it's tough, man, because you can either have like two dominant bigs or two dominant guards, and either sides could go well. Like if the guards ain't hitting shots, the
Yeah.
bigs are going to dominate on the glass. You know, if that's the case,
Yeah.
what works? I mean, I think we have, when you see this championship, that you got two dominant, wings with Lance and Bees. For us, you got Trez, myself, and we got solid guards too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really just comes down to like what's working at the time of the game. Like, so I don't know who would you rather have. Like me, I'm a big, so personally, I would rather have this just a court full of bigs on the floor and we just
Right.
dominate the post, because that's what it's going to come down to. If you miss shots, we're going to get every rebound.
Yeah, exactly.
Better be.
That's what I mean. Like Boogie, like, I know that he's probably more than deserving of a spot in the NBA, but and I'm sure there's a ton of good opportunities out there. So don't let me downplay it by any means. But the Big Three is a good opportunity in my opinion, and it feels like somewhere where you could definitely have your way if you feel like you're at that kind of level to be able to play. So that's what I mean more so in terms of the playground. Like you should want to come
Right.
play here because the opportunity and the flexibility you might have,
For
depending on how you
sure.
guys are playing.
I mean, if you want to still come compete and play and have fun, the Big Three is for sure. But some players, when they retire, they just want to completely be done and chill. So I understand that too.
I get that too.
But so,
Yeah.
it's their preferences. But you definitely would love to see everybody come play and just get out there and compete again.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, don't want to look too far in the future. I do want to say best of luck to you this Sunday in Orlando, to you and the Triplets. A lot of history hoping to be made at that point. So best of luck to you. Appreciate the time and safe travels on your way to Orlando.
Yes, sir. And I need to get you a jersey, man, hung up in that room, man. I see you got Joe. Everybody, I need you to get the when I win, the most winningest player here in the Big Three.
Man, please. I would hang that up in a heartbeat, no doubt. I'll have all the Triplets championship jerseys in here then. So
for sure.
that's perfect. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Amir.
I appreciate you, Ant.
Already the final week of the 2025 season. So that means we have a special episode lined up for you and definitely want to bring on some special guests. Today on the show, we got a recurring guest. We got Mark Gray, the assistant coach, I almost said Three's Company, of Miami 305. And Mark, appreciate it. I always appreciate you being able to take the time and coming on here, and welcome back to the show. I know you got to be fired up. Head to the championship this week.
Thank you very much for having me, man. Anytime you ask, I'm always there for you, man. I love what you do, and I love the fact that you've been covering this league from day one. And I hope that when as the league continues to grow, man, I hope that they bring you along on the ride, man, because you really know what you're talking about. You know the league, and every so often, they keep adding new media pieces as the league grows, and to no fault of their own. I mean, obviously they don't know the history of the league, So if you sign, even if you bring in Stephen A. Smith next year, he's not going to know the history of the league. And you've been here for day one, and you know everything, and you cover it, and you got all the stuff. So always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you always taking the time to join. And man, it's at the same time, it's good. I feel like not necessarily being affiliated with the league. Like, yes, we've done some work with the league over our time, but like, I think it's good that we've always been independent because we can give more of an objective view, like players can say what they want to say on this podcast without feeling like it's a reflection of the league, if that makes sense. So
absolutely.
I've always appreciated the platform and just building credibility, even just through like guys like yourself and players. And man, at the end of the day, it's enough for me. Do a little side work here with the league, and I'm always going to promote them. But as you've been here since day one. There's been a lot of ups and downs with the leagues that everyone's just had to kind of battle through. So I always want to make sure that I can take an objective standpoint. But all that being said, you got the Three's Company's jerseys behind you. You're about to head to your third Big Three title game. your second in a row consecutive. It's pretty much the same squad from last year, albeit, you'll see your young bull Nas on the other side. So the whole team from last year is going to be back in the championship game. What's kind of the thoughts and feelings now as you're preparing heading into this weekend in comparison to like right after the game and in a very emotional, passionate game against a team that you're pretty familiar with?
I mean, you always hear about it in football, like the team that wins the Super Bowl, that loses the Super Bowl, they have a stat about like them not even getting back to the playoffs the next year. You know what I mean? And I can see why. It's such an emotional letdown. Like I can't say I've ever even experienced anything like that. When we lost season 2, we lost by like double digits and it hurt. But the way we lost last year was such an emotional drain that it really stuck with us for a while. So for us to get back here, it definitely feels like we worked in that and had to come over a lot, and we've been focused, but it's like we still literally have that bad taste in our mouth, and that we can't get that off. When we went to Boston this year, I think we were there week 2 or week 3, and I didn't even think about it at all until we walked into that arena. And like me and Reggie were walking, and it was just like, "Yo, man, let's get out of here, bro." Like when we walked past the locker room that we was in last year. We walked past the locker room they were in last year, and it was like all those old scabs just came back again. When you're standing out on the court, you just felt it, and it's like, man, really a bad taste in your mouth. So the goal right now is to win to avenge that last year's loss, really.
Yeah, it like you said, 2018 was a different story. I mean, first off, super kudos to you for putting on for Andre Emmett. For any new listeners or any new people to the Big Three who didn't get a chance to see Andre play, I mean, a real deal killer. This man, if he had more years in the league, probably would have won one or at least won more awards than just the fourth man. Definitely would have been an all-star at some point. So super kudos to you, especially in his hometown of Dallas. But also, too, just like that 2018 team, Andre was like on kind of a supernova run there, but you guys at the same time, it was first time being in the title game. Coop was a new coach that year. You guys didn't have BD for like half the season. Definitely not down the stretch. So it was I don't want to say there's more room for excuses, but it made more, there was an understanding of like why things maybe didn't go your way against a really good power team and who had the MVP in McGetty that year. Last year was definitely different, right? It's like you don't want to say like a ref's call is what changes the game necessarily, because things could have been done throughout the game. But like when refs come out and say, "Hey, we made a mistake on that one," like it's painful. I'm sure. I feel like that's been kind of shown throughout the season too.
Yeah, it has. The refs, I don't want to get on here and bash anybody like that. The refs haven't been great all the time. Nobody's great all the time.
Yeah.
But as long as it's, for lack of a better word, equally bad both ways, you know what I mean? It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, I mean, the dude's dribbling the ball out of bounds, like, and that cost us the game. Like he's dribbling the ball out of bounds. Mario goes to foul the guy. They don't call any foul. I mean, it was just a melee. But while I can point at that for the reason that we lost, is as a guy who watches unlimited amount of film, there's no more than 30 different reasons we lost that game.
Yeah, definitely. But that being said, that's in the past. Now you guys coming to this season, basically running it back. It's been a little, I wouldn't say a tumultuous season, but it's definitely been a season where I want to go back to what I said. Like, you've seen how much passion and hunger and desire has gone back into like getting back to this point to have a chance at redemption. From the beginning of the season when Bees, wasn't happy that you guys weren't bringing Nas back and adding Lance, and then to embracing kind of that new teammate vibe, to just even like, there's obviously this past week is just one example of it, but there's been a lot of conversations just about like the conversations and arguments in the huddle that just goes behind like a very passionate team and a bunch of passionate players. How would you describe Miami's, season in one word for 2025?
One word. That's a good one. How would I describe our season? Right now, incomplete. Right now, it's incomplete. Because we had one mission. We had one goal and one goal only. Like, we didn't come here to make the championship. We made the championship last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's great that if we were sitting here right now and we were undefeated and won every game by 30 points, it'd still be the same word. You know what I mean? It's still incomplete because this team was put together and we came with one mission only, and that's to win the title. You know what I'm saying? We didn't come here to get Mike to get the MVP. We already had that. We didn't come here for, we already had the fourth man of the year last year. I'm glad that Lance was able to get it this year. But all the individual awards, all the making the playoffs, we already been there. We did that. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah,
the only thing that we're here for is a championship. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah. No, it's and I think that's a good way to go about it. And even just kind of like peeling the onion a little bit. I mean, I feel like there's so much, not necessarily on the line, but there's just so much that goes into it, right? Like Reggie and you and Coop have been a part of this league for a long time, have been to title games where it just hasn't worked out. Rio's at a point where, like, if he wins this, he'll be the first guy to ever do it in college and at the NBA in this level. I think for B, just winning a title, it looks like there, and even Lance, like, there's a lot of like passion behind like wanting to get that championship, under your belt. So you can definitely see the passion behind it, or other people might treat it or call it whatever it is, but I look at it as a lot of passion just behind a lot of people that like are really hungry to like win this all.
We a lot. I feel like on our team, everybody had. So, like you said, for example, for Rio, it'll be Rio's legacy. Part of Rio's legacy is he's won state championship, college championship, NBA championship, and that's how you end it, with a championship and the big three.
Mm-hmm.
Mike has already at this point won 2 MVPs. Come on, what's 2 MVPs without a championship?
For sure.
Coop is the only person to win an NBA title, a WNBA title, and I think it's a G League title. I want to say it is. So he wants this on his resume. Lance, first year, he wants it. Reggie's been here since year one. He's been to 2 finals. This is his third. You know what I'm saying? Maybe his last shot at it.
This is fourth. Year one.
Third.
Year one, 2020.
He was on Killer 3. He was on Killer 3's year one. He wasn't on 3.
Oh, that's right. You're right. It is his third. I forgot he was on Killer 3.
So it's his third. Maybe not. You know what I'm saying? Who knows how many other shots he's going to get at it? And so it's like me and Coop been there 3 times. I'm not trying to be the Buffalo Bills of this thing. You know what I mean? Like, and so we all just want that. That's all we want, to be honest with you. That's all any of us want is this championship.
Yeah. What do you, so, obviously Lance has been a huge addition to the league, and he's brought a lot of fire and energy to this team as well. And, you guys had the only difference between this team and this year's team and last year's team is obviously Nas and Lance. And not to say like Nas, it wasn't anything that he didn't do. It's just, unfortunate how that last game ended. But more so of like, not an addition by subtraction, but like what has Lance brought to this team that's made this team, when you guys are on, like very, very challenging to beat, but also like pretty good like defensively, and that has you guys confident that like this time around will be different?
Not Lance by any stretch of the imagination I don't think you can make a case of Lance is any worse than the 5th best player in this league, and probably no worse than the 3rd best scorer in this league. So Lance is an elite player by any stretch of the imagination. So when you had a guy like that, you're only going to get better. He brings mental toughness. He brings defensive toughness. He brings everything that you could ask for. He's been the ultimate teammate. He's been a great teammate. I kind of, as a guy whose main responsibility is taking care of, the locker room stuff, I definitely was kind of worried how he would adapt, being as we were returning 4 guys that are a very close-knit group, and he was going to have to mesh with us. And he couldn't have done a better job if he tried to. Like, he literally came in, like, we were already a family, and he was the one guy that wasn't. And he fit right in instantly. He comes around, talks, he hangs out, he's with us, and he never complains about anything. He's just been the ultimate team player since day one. And that's why it's funny to me, like, I see all these things online about Lance and Mike and Lance. Since Lance got here, the reporting has been just false. Like, it's just the whole concept, even that Mike didn't want Lance here. That's not true. And it's just weird to see how media covers things and how people take things and just build their own narrative. And none of that was true. Mike never had a problem with Lance. Mike never didn't. That's not what that was about. There was a whole separate issue. It had nothing to do with Mike wanted Lance. It was just Mike wanted his voice to be heard and his opinion to be heard within management on something completely different than that. You know what I mean? So it wasn't about Lance. And it just so I seen one of these posts somebody was saying, Lance doesn't like his ego won't allow him to be a backseat to Mike, and that's just so not true. And every time we argue, somebody thinks they just come up with their own narrative, and it's not true. Our team argues and fights and does complain and it's all because they want to win. Mm-hmm. It's literally all because they win. What you're seeing is 5 guys that just want to win at any cost, and there's no ego involved. That's why I was glad that they got that soundbite that is a little bit funny and it looks, whatever. And I've seen all the memes, but the truth of the matter is how that locker room, there was a close game. Lance hits 2 buckets in a row, and and after he's made 2 buckets in a row, Lance didn't try to take over the game. You know what Lance said after he just scored 2 buckets in a row and got a huge rebound? He told Mike, "Go handle it, close it, do it. It's your show. It's your show. It's your show." Well, people see Mike and Lance yelling at each other on the bench, but they don't hear what they're saying. Mm-hmm. Lance is telling Mike, "You too nice. They can't guard you. Stop. Go. Stop playing. Go. Take them." That's what Lance is saying. Lance not saying nothing about the ball. Lance ain't never complained about the ball. And Lance wanted Mike to take that shot. And that's why I was glad that the cameras were there to catch Lance telling Mike, I'm sure you heard the audio.
Yeah.
You're the man. I told you, you're the man. Like, Lance is Mike's biggest fan.
And I would say, too, I think Mike, as the reigning MVP, as someone who's the only person in this league to be named an All-Star 4 times, going back to the beginning of the season, has every right to have some sort of say on how his team is structured. And if he wanted the team to be run back, I felt like that should have been considered a little bit more. That's just from me being on an outside perspective. But it feels like throughout even just him, doing a podcast with the league and everything like that, a lot of it really just does come down to people are changing the narrative and the way that he's trying to present things and then using that against him. And it feels like his voice isn't being heard, even though he's built, this resume and this credibility, even in this league over the past 4 years. And so I feel like he had every right to say what he wanted. But yeah, you're 100% right. I feel like even because the league has gotten more popular and there is new media, the way in which the conversation of Beasley doesn't want to be on this team because he doesn't want to be teammates with the guy he just went one-on-one against, or Beasley wants to be traded, and the egos are too much to be able to mesh. That's the part where, going back to the beginning of this conversation, I like being a podcast not associated with the league, because you have that, objective conversations where you've seen these guys in the league for a while and kind of know how they operate a little bit more through guys like yourself and guys, and other guys talking about them. So,
people push a narrative and it's clickbait and it's easy. And not only that, it's really hard for people to say is, "I don't know." Nobody wants to say they don't know.
Yeah.
So they just make up stuff. And the amount of talk that people had about that one-on-one game and the effect on what it was going to be, how their teammates. You know how many times that one-on-one game has been mentioned in our locker room?
I would say 0. Yeah.
0. Not one time. And when I say that, it's not like the elephant in the room either. Nobody's thought about it. Mm-hmm. Nobody thinks about it. Mike's never said. That's why I busted. Never happened. It's never once happened. It never had a conversation about it. Matter of fact, I take that back. Last week, and I'll tell you this. Last week we were at dinner, and this is the type of stuff that I actually love. It's just the team. We're at dinner, and they're talking about, because Nas has said something about Lance playing one-on-one, and Joe Johnson, Mike said something about. So we're talking about one-on-one, but not necessarily their game. So Mike has already said on the podcast, "Man, Joe was supposed to play me, but then he didn't play me." He starts naming some other names like, "Yo, we were saying, who do you think Mike could play one-on-one? That'd be a good matchup." People start throwing names out there. Somebody says Rudy Gay. Somebody says Carmelo. Somebody says something. Mike says they asked this person. They asked that person. Lance comes out and he said, "Man, I talked to so-and-so and I talked to so-and-so, and they said man, Lance, you the only one crazy enough to play that dude. We ain't playing that guy one-on-one. And he was like, and so we all just bust out laughing. And Lance was like, yo, I was the only one who was willing to take it. Like, they offered plenty of people the opportunity to play Mike one-on-one, and Lance was the only one who was going to take it. And so, like, we all bust out laughing because it's like Lance is like, the narrative is that Lance is crazy, and he's like, everybody was saying, Lance, you the only one stupid crazy enough to play Mike one-on-one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we all
That's
bust
funny.
out laughing, and it was just so much respect. It's so much respect for Lance to say that. It's so much respect for Mike. And Mike has all the respect in the world for Lance, because the truth of the matter is, the reason the story is funny is because it's true. And like, Mike knows that. Like, you can't do nothing but respect Lance, because Lance said, I'll play him. You know what I mean? And that's it. So that all that narrative about the one-on-one game, and it's not true. And Mike and Lance have been nothing but friends and great teammates, and it's never been a problem. And I was in the building, obviously, at that one-on-one game.
Right.
And that just wasn't the energy, and it never has been. They did that face-off, which to me was pure comedy.
Yeah. I was entertainment.
It was pure comedy. And, if you're looking for somebody to sell tickets, Michael Beasley's your guy. You know what I mean? Just put the camera pointed in his direction and let him talk. He'll sell the tickets. And that's what they did. They sold the ticket. It was a success. They sold the tickets. People tuned in. It was a great game. And then a week later, we were in training camp. Matter of fact, they played on Friday. We started training camp on Sunday.
Wow.
The game was in Miami on Friday. We had training camp starting on Sunday.
Yeah, you guys were training in Miami. Yeah, right then and there. I think that's a great story, just in terms of the representation of the lack of ego Lance has. Like, I mean, to be able to like poke fun at yourself a little bit, not saying that he didn't want to win that game, but like by any means, be able to poke fun at yourself a little bit. I feel like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no ego to be shown there, right? Right. Like, this dude
and what I love about our team, so that game is in Miami on Friday. I get there on Thursday. Mario's there on Thursday. Sean comes from Texas there on Thursday. Reggie's there. Like, our whole entire team was there. We all came to support Mike. And for us, myself, it was to support Mike and welcome Lance. You know what I mean? So it's like, Lance, welcome to the team. You know what I mean? And at no point in time did anybody ever mention the game.
Wow. Was there, speaking on that, was there a moment where you said that you were, you had your, not doubts necessarily, but you had your concerns about how Lance would fit into a team that's so close? Was there a point in time this season where Lance, it was like the moment in time where Lance really felt like he was a part of the family officially?
You'd have to ask Lance that.
Yeah.
I feel you'd have to ask Lance that. I felt like from day one, we're a different group. So I will say you'd have to ask Lance that, and I'd be interested to hear where he would say. But whenever that time was, it was early, because at the beginning, maybe week 1 or week 2, definitely we're creatures of habits. You gotta understand, me, Mike, and Mario been together 4 years now. Sean and Reggie been there, so it's like we do the same things on the road. So Lance is coming in. He don't know we about to go here. We about to do this. We do this. This is the protocol. We do this. So he's filling out the league. And I think actually week 2 when we were in Miami, we kind of all said what we needed everybody to do a little bit more of. We had a team meeting, and it's, I need you to do a little bit more of this. I need you to do a little bit more of that. We need to do a little bit more of this. And somebody said in that meeting, hey, Lance, I know it's hard, and I know you don't necessarily have the same hobbies or interests that everybody else on this team does, but we kind of need you around a little bit more. And Lance said, bet. And that night, he came by and hung out with us, and ever since then. So yeah, I would probably say whenever we played in Miami, I think that was week 2 or week 3, we played in Miami. Off of Baltimore. We came after we lost in Baltimore, and we had that in Miami, and we just kind of said, Lance, we need you in here a little bit more, just with us. And he said, cool.
That's big time. I don't feel like you get a lot of that from every team in this league. I know we always hear about the culture of power, but I mean, the culture of Miami, the culture of this Three's Company transition to Miami, it feels like it needs to be discussed a little bit more, because y'all have really built a tight-knit group and a team that's just acts more as a family. So, I mean, I think that's huge, and that's a big part of like why you guys have been successful for the past couple of years.
We have the title of the most dysfunctional team in the league, and that's fine. I feel like we earned that, and we can wear that. And people say that, and that's cool. I won't even argue that. The most entertaining team, the most all of that. Colorful team, all of that. But the thing that I don't think we get enough credit for is we're the closest knit team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that we are the closest knit team in the league. And when it's not in season, me, Mike, and Mario, and Reggie and Sean, we talk the same amount. You know what I mean? So it's not.
Yeah.
We're not just a team. We're not 305. Like, we're friends in real life.
Well,
you know what I mean?
And the crazy part is, I only feel like that narrative comes up when in the losses, right? And maybe that's, maybe that's valid to an extent, or whatever the case may be, because like everyone's always gonna talk about you when you're doing things wrong more than when you're doing things right. Because in your wins, I mean, you guys look like the tightest knit teams, and you're having all the fun in the world, and Lance is skipping on the court, hitting shots, crossing people, whatever the case may be. Like, right? Like, everyone wants to talk about those high moments, but people love to talk more about the low moments. I mean, and even in the losses this year, a lot of it feels like it's just like has more to do not necessarily being out of sync or dysfunctional or anything like that. It's more of just maybe a misunderstanding. I mean, I guess maybe this is a better question for you. Like, what would you attribute like the losses this summer to? Because this is definitely a team that could have walked into this without a loss, by any means.
Self-inflicted.
Yeah.
All of our losses. Just about every single game we played this year, I don't have the stats, we were the first team to 45. The power game we lost, it was 41-41. So nobody's blown us out. We've been in every single game. Didn't execute down the stretch in a couple of games. And to me, a lot of it was handling the refs. And when I say handling the refs, the refs make bad calls. So I don't blame the refs for us, but it's how we react to the bad calls. That's the difference. So yes, the refs make bad calls. Now I don't want to say, oh man, the ref cost us the game. Our reaction to the refs cost us the games. So we just know that we just have to handle that. We just know that if there's going to be a bad call, we can't melt down for it. And I think we have a habit of bad call happens, and it's like, watch what they do on this next play, and it's going to be something stupid. You know what I mean? And it might be another, and we can't do that.
Can we talk about the officiating just for a second? Because you've been a part of this league since 2017. The officiating's it's always been difficult because the idea of this league is to be a little bit rougher around the edges, more of a, kind of like in the park kind of feeling. It's always going to be like harder fouls, and there's hand checking allowed and things like that. But what do you feel like, even from your perspective on the bench, like what do you feel like is the problem with the officiating more so than just like, because like some games, like they're calling it super tight on ticky-tacky fouls, and other games they're allowing people, and even maybe down the stretch they're allowing people to be more aggressive. There might be charges and blocks that you would see in any other call just not even being factored in. Like, what do you feel like is like mainly the problem around officiating, outside of the fact that it's just difficult to kind of ref in this league in general?
So my team does a very good job of beating the refs up. Like, they let the refs know how they feel around the clock. So I don't feel like I need to pile on the refs because my team already does a great job of that. Is complaining to the refs. I'm pretty sure my team leads the league in most time complaining to the ref. But what I will say is, from the bench standing there, what upsets me the most. So there's like two different things. So for example, in that power game, Sean had probably one of the cleanest blocks you'll ever see in your life on Montrez. The entire ball, palms the ball with his hand, meets him at the highest point, everything you can possibly think of, and they call a foul. That's a bad call. Nas literally shoves Mario into the third row, extends the arm and everything. They don't call a foul. That's where the stuff kind of gets, where it's the inconsistency. So We're watching the last game. There's one play where Sean has the ball and he gets hit. Is it the hardest foul in the world? No, it's not the hardest foul in the world. You see Sean and he gets fouled, and us as a coach, I'm saying, he's like, he fouls me. He's like, yeah, well, I guess they're letting them play, so okay, letting us play. And then you adapt to they're letting us play. And then the very next play, it's like, reach in foul, da-da-da. And it's just like, hold on, man. Are you, what? So ticky-tack foul here, but you letting them play there. And you just never know.
Like from a week to week
And
basis, you never know. It sounds like.
yeah, and within the game, they never know. And as a player, you think about a guy like Reggie or Sean or these guys who are bigs, and they're okay. 1 second I'm down low and I'm banging, and it's okay, and then the next second it's like, yo, you just call a reach in foul on I tapped his finger. Like which one
Yeah.
is it? And that's what is hard for the players is the inconsistencies. And then you got guys like Mike, who to be fair to the refs, I would hate to have to officiate against a guy like Mike because he's so talented and he's so big, and it is hard to guard him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then you got on the flip side, you got a guy like Rio, who in this league, because there's only 3 people and Rio is very small, he often gets caught on the switches and he's out there. And if he gets caught on the switch against the bigger guy, I feel like they're basically calling the foul immediately, no matter what Mario does, and you're not even giving him a chance to compete.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're gonna.
Yeah, it's difficult.
A bigger guy is gonna try and run Mario over, and if he stands his ground or he tries to reach or he tries to use his hand, they're calling a foul. And if he can't use his hand, what would you like Mario to do?
Yeah, and hand checking is allowed in the league, so it's like that's another difficulty. Is like, okay, how much can I use my hands before I'm getting a call, or am I like, how much can they use their hands and never get a call? And then just allow them to do that. So I feel like you definitely see a little bit of that from like just like the fan perspective as well. It's just like it's hard to and for someone like Reggie, like who's been in this league since day one. I mean, it was probably the most physical in the first couple of years, and they didn't call a lot of stuff. I mean, it was the complaint wasn't like inconsistency. The complaint was like, man, like he just elbowed me in the head and you didn't call any of that. So I gotta imagine for him, it's like been a huge adjustment the past couple of years, trying to adjust to like some of the finesse games as well as the physical games.
You'll watch the game, and if Reggie's going to set 3 screens, and boy, you don't want to run into a Reggie every screen. It's literally running into a wall. And he'll set the same screen 3 to 4 times a game, and every game, one of them they call an illegal screen, and it's the exact same screen he set the play before. You know what I mean? So when you see that look, and it's just like, that's literally the exact same screen I set before. And there's no real rhyme or reason to when it's an illegal screen and when it's not an illegal screen. And that's the hardest part.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, well, all of that, was on the basis of just like self-inflicted wounds throughout the season. Cause it does feel like when you guys are on, it's really tough to beat you, foul calls or not. So, going into the next game, that's going to be definitely interesting to see how they call those things. Before we get into the next game and even talk about the game against Dallas, I just want to quickly highlight someone that probably doesn't get highlighted enough, and I know that you highlighted him here recently when he was named Defensive Player of the Year, and that's Sean Williams, who has just been, since he joined, has just been like a rim protecting machine, and maybe all the plays he makes defensively don't show up on the stat sheet, but his presence has definitely been felt. And maybe it's not felt as much because he didn't have like a social media. He's not active on social media, and he's a quieter person, it seems like. But can you just talk about the impact he's made on your guys' squad the past couple of years, and ultimately, why it made sense to not just bring the whole squad back because of, familiarity and you wanted to run it back, but just why it made sense to bring him back because of what he brings to the table?
Well, here's my thing about Sean. I get to use, anybody who knows me, my 4 favorite words. I told you so. And that's for my own personal reason. I'm so ecstatic for Sean because I've been telling anybody who will listen, and I've said it on your show before, and I've said it to you with DMs. Sean is an elite defensive player. He just is. And people are like, okay, I'm as somebody who watches him play, and I watch him guard Mike, who's an elite offensive player. I've never seen anybody guard Mike the way Sean does. And I watch Sean, we playing ones, he's guarding Mike. I see him guard Nas, and I see him guard Reggie. Come on, man. That's a 6-foot guy, a 6'10" guy, and a 6'8" guy, solid muscle. And he guards all 3 of them. And throw Mario in the mix too. He'll guard Mario. Like Sean can guard everybody. He can test every shot. And his block numbers are phenomenal. But to me, it's not even about the blocks. When you watch the games, and especially in this setting, the amount of times that people drive to the hole, see Sean, and throw up this. Just watch how they throw the ball extra high. They missed the rim, and because they missed the rim, we were able to go straight up with it and score. And on that particular play, Sean doesn't get a block. Sean doesn't get a rebound. But as far as I'm concerned, those are 2 points for Sean.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that's
definitely.
the Sean basket. And you will see it. People, if you're not used to playing with Sean, you are going to be surprised at his wingspan and that he can test every shot. So what you get is the people who are not used to playing Sean, and he's going to block this shot instantly because it's like, okay, I didn't know that. And then the people who are used to Sean, playing Sean, including a Mike or any of these guys that play against Sean, you know when you shoot against Sean Williams, you have to throw the ball high because he's going to contest it. And he's altering his shot. And you can't put a price on that. Like, it's instant offense. So it's not, to me, it's not his offensive numbers. It's the shots that he alters and changes. And when you miss that shot and you miss the entire rim and somebody else just catches and goes up, that's a Sean Williams too. And I love, as a coach, the flexibility he gives when we're putting in game plans is, when we playing Earl Clark, we got Sean. We playing Glenn Rice, I'm going to put Sean on him. Whatever the person is, they always say, I want to put Sean on him. Because you show me somebody that wants to play the entire game against Sean. Nobody wants to play the entire game against Sean. It's not that you're not going to score, but you're going to earn it. All these guys are elite offensive players, so it's not like he's going to shut anybody out, but you're going to earn it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be some contested shots. I mean, I've seen, whether it's Glenn Rice or where it's Pargo, and it's like, you earned it. Ask them if that was an easy shot, and they'll tell you, no, it wasn't an easy shot. We earned it. So, we had Sean last year. I like what he did last year at the Combine. That's why I put his name in the hat for my vote. I was glad that Rio and Coop saw what I saw. I felt like we got a steal last year. Maybe it's a good thing that nobody realized it last year because we were able to steal them again this year.
Yeah, that's true.
I tell you what, I bet you if we do a combine next year, somebody will be taking Sean. I think he's earned it now, and people realize the impact that he has.
Yeah, definitely. And I think at this point, if the rules still apply in the same way that they used to, hopefully you don't have to even worry about that. But yeah, I think I just wanted to kind of like highlight him a little bit more. And even too, like going back to his impact, like it's just so, like, I think it's just so much more impactful in this league because of, if, shots not hitting the rim, it's an easy putback for anybody. So like you said, like it's 2 points for him. It's like, it's all the difference in the world from the 5v5 game to the 3v3 game, just knowing that it's half court. So like, I think that's huge. And I feel like he's definitely made an impact. I honestly, I think he's made an impact like offensively too in games where I wasn't expecting him. Like I wouldn't expect him to put up, points at the line and sometimes get a couple of mid-range buckets. So he hit a 3-ball earlier this year. Like I didn't know, he could stretch the.
Now that one I'm not even going to take credit for and tell you that. I certainly didn't tell anybody about Sean's offensive prowess. So that's been a welcome surprise too, and I welcome that too, because I mean that same length that he uses on defense, he's able to use it on offense, and he's going to catch that lob, and he's a great pick and roll threat, and he's finishing around the rim. He had one game there where I was calling Akeem Olajuwon, like he was doing it all, and I was like, wow. I mean, that one I didn't see. I didn't see that one come.
Yeah, super impressed. All-star season. So obviously none of the accolades really matter for you guys. It's all about winning a championship. But in order to get there, you guys had to play Dallas this past week at their home court, which is crazy that they got a home court advantage in a playoff game. But nonetheless, got it done. Another tight one. I guess going in, what was the game plan? Earlier this year, suffered a tough loss to them. What was the game plan going in, and how did you feel like you guys did in terms of execution outside of course, getting the win?
The game plan was, I mean, we knew that they were going to be prepared. I felt our team is so talented, and 95% of the time you can get away with just roll the ball out there and play. And it's like, hey, we have better players. We should be able to win. Nobody over there is as good as our guys, so let's go. And we did that the first time with Power, and it didn't work. And that's because, a prepared team is a scary thing. And they're a prepared team with a game plan. So we just want to make sure that this time we came in prepared with the game plan. And we treated this game different than we had any other game this year. We spent a lot of time going over defense. We spent a lot of time going over offense. So what you saw out there was an executed game plan. We didn't just go out there and hoop. It was an executed game plan. We knew that defensively they had several schemes planned for Mike and several moves that they were going to do against Mike. And we felt like my job was to prepare Mike for that. And hey, Mike, I just want you to know they're going to be doing this. This person is coming from there. When you dribble this way, they're going to do that. And so we spent a lot of time going over that. You know what I'm saying? Okay, Mike, if they come from here, what are you going to do? Okay, Lance, if they guard Mike here, where are you going to go to? And, in that case. And so when it all came together, that when that double team did come, there was that kick to Rio, and there was that three. There was that cut from Lance, and Mike found them. And if you go and you look, Mike had the most assists in that game out of any player on the floor. Mike led the game in assists, and that wasn't an accident. That was preparation.
Yeah, Mike also had 5 blocks in that game, which I'm not going to say I was stunned, but I was like, when I looked at the box score, because it did feel like in the game he was like kind of picking up or helping on defense a lot of the time. But 5 blocks, I was like, man, that dude was really
that's preparation.
Doing it all.
That's preparation. That's preparation. That's having a game plan, knowing what you want to do defensively, and going out and executing it. Dictating what we wanted to do and stick to the game plan.
Yeah, a very emotional game, and obviously, anytime you guys match up with Nancy Lieberman, it always probably goes back to that 2018 championship game. I'm sure a lot of history between both of y'all squads. So kudos to y'all getting it done. And now, going to play a Chicago Triplets team, like you said, self-inflicted wounds throughout the year. You get a chance at redemption against them. We've kind of alluded to a little bit that you get to play somebody that was on your team last year who I think Mike had mentioned on the podcast he didn't like the way things went about, and the officiating was a little bit inconsistent, as we've already talked about a little bit. I don't necessarily want to spoil your whole game plan, so I'm not going to ask you exactly how you're preparing for them. But I would more so just like to hear from your perspective, or just what you've seen in film. What makes Chicago difficult and challenging to play against? Maybe I'll ask him that way so I don't spoil any game plans or anything.
No. So Mike gets a lot of talk and a lot of coverage, and he's the MVP this year and MVP last year, and that's cool. He deserves all of that. Montrezl Harrell is right there. You know what I mean? Montrezl, if Mike's not in this league and Joe's not in this league, we're talking about Montrezl the same way we're talking about them. Montrezl just happens to be new to the league, and that's the difference. Mike and Joe, we know what they can do, so we've been talking about it. Montrezl Harrell, I do not believe is he's 31, maybe 32.
Yeah.
There's no reason Montrezl Harrell is not in the NBA. You know what I mean? So I think he came in wanting to prove that. I don't think Montrezl. I say this in the right way. We got guys, Montrezl, Lance, and Mike. I'll throw him there. They don't want to be in the Big Three. And when I say they don't want to be in the Big Three, they feel like they should be in the NBA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And and all three of them train like they should still be in the NBA. And they play with NBA players, and they believe that their game is active, NBA ready. And for those three, I agree. I absolutely feel like all three of them could play in the NBA today. Montrezl is an animal, and Montrezl is a beast. So that's a matchup problem that you have to worry about. I feel like Reggie is going to do as good a job as anybody on Montrezl. Montrezl is able to bully probably everybody else in the league. You're not going to go through Reggie Evans' chest. You might go around him, but you're damn sure not going to go through him. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And
I think Montrezl knows that. So, that's going to make it a little bit harder for that. Then you get the Nas. Aside from the fact that Nas is already an elite one-on-one basketball player, and Nas is already in his basketball prime, which separates him from 95% of the league. Nas has a chip on his shoulder and motivation. You know what I mean? So that has to be accounted for. We know that Nas is trying to kill Lance. Nas is trying to kill Rio. Nas is trying to kill Coop, myself, our owners. We know that. So we know you can't sleep on. While we all know that Nas is really good at basketball, we also know that Nas is trying to send a message. So we have to account for that. And the second that you start worrying about Nas and Montrezl and not paying attention, here comes Body Bag dunking the ball on your head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's before we even mention Chris Allen, who I think might be one of the most underrated players in this entire league. So they're a really good team. And we didn't even say Amir Johnson, who has done what a lot of pros have done in terms of Amir doesn't play much, and he just sits there, doesn't cause any commotion, and waits for his number to be called. And then you get a game like last week where, winner go home, and bam, look who it is. It's Amir Johnson with 18 points and leads the team to a victory, and did a great job on Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot to handle. So it's a lot to scout. Like I said, Montrez is an animal. Nas, we already know about. And the second you don't pay attention to body bag, here he comes. You just, to me, he's like a more athletic TJ Klein in terms of they just crash and do everything.
Yeah.
They do all the stuff and they play good defense. He does a good job on Mike defensively. And then, like I said, I think Chris Allen is maybe the most underrated player in this league.
Yeah, I think that's a really good breakdown of the team as a whole, right? And especially on Amir, like I was just thinking that too, when looking at some of his stats and kind of going back and watching games. Like it feels like Amir throughout the season is kind of just the big playing and doing his part, and then whenever he's needed most in the championship moments or playoff moments, that's where he's having his biggest games. I was looking back at 2021 in the championship. Like didn't do much all year of 2021 when he first joined, and then the championship has like a huge double-double to win his first title. And so I think that's a really good breakdown of them. And two, what I was noticing, I was going back and watching the game, which I'm sure you've done a million times. Montrez, some of the early parts of that game, like Montrez, I don't necessarily think he was trying to go through Reggie, but he was kind of taking the same approach of backing people down and seeing what he can do in the block. And when that didn't work over time, like obviously there were times where Reggie came out of the game, or even when Reggie came back in, Montrez was able to stretch the field and hit shots from the outside, which hasn't necessarily done all season long. And then when he was against Sean, he was able to work a little bit more in the post, just being, kind of a lanky or skinny build than Reggie. I'm sure you got plenty of game plans like that. Also, too, I noticed that, in the second half, you guys only scored 16 points in comparison to how you guys started the game. So I guess, is there like any urgency to get off to a hotter start, or like any urgency to like mix things up? Again, I'm not trying to spoil the game plan, but I'm sure you've watched plenty of film. And
if you go back and you watch that game, we went to halftime up. We went and did what we wanted to do in the first half. The first 3 plays of the second half were 3 fouls on us, including that block that Sean had.
Okay, that was the beginning of the second half.
Those were the first 3 possessions of the second half. Then came Nas's shove of Rio. So we just never recovered from that. And it's hard when you get three possessions, 3 whistles, and this league fouls mean so much because once you get in the bonus, you guys were in the bonus early. Coop brought the fire at 26-25 because we just couldn't afford to keep racking up fouls. They were in the bonus, and we just never recovered from it mentally. And there's a specific play where we did a great job actually with Montrez in the first half. I think Montrez had 4 points in the first half. Then there's a loose ball that he chases down. He gets it, and with the shot clock is at 0, and he shoots a 3, and it goes in.
Oh, yeah. That was early in the second half.
And it goes in. And I don't think he misses a basket after that. You know what I mean? So that right there, while we did a great job of containing Montrez in the first half, I felt like once you saw that one and he got the dancing and everything, I don't think he missed another basket after that. And you put all that together with the fouls, it was just too much for us. Again, don't want to blame the refs, but our reaction to what the refs did. And it's hard when you play hard and you feel like you just want the refs to give you a chance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 3 fouls, 3 plays in a row is tough. And then Nas comes out there and throws Mario out the way and we don't get the foul. That's tough. That's tough.
That one, yeah. That one's fun, from a fan's perspective. I think a couple of my buddies who don't watch the league on a regular basis saw that one and they're like, they didn't call a charge for that?
I mean, that one when we all got back to the locker room, we got to their phones, everybody was like, whoa. That was the thing is, when I went back and I actually asked Scal this, I was wondering if the league said anything to him. When you go back and you watch the film, like I watch film all the time, and that Jimmy Jackson and Scal are like, that's not a foul. They replayed that Sean block, and they're like, that's as good a block as you're going to see. And so it's like, it's not just my or us thinking that. You know what I'm saying? The broadcasters that are calling the game, when Nas threw Nas posted a clip on his page, and all the comments were, damn, you just gonna throw Mario like that? You know what I mean? I don't know how, in what world that's not a charge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that one was tough, and our guys just didn't handle it properly.
Yeah. Shout out to Scal and Jimmy Jackson, by the way. I think they've done a great job just like saying as much as they can. For
I was
guys that have been a part of the league.
glad. I was glad. I was interested to see, because Scout definitely says what he sees, and I asked him. I said, "Do they say anything to you?" And he, like, ease up off the ref, and he said no. He said, "I wouldn't care if they did," but he said, "No, nobody's ever said anything to me," because he definitely says all the time,
Yeah,
what are they? That's a bad call. That's a terrible call. That's not a foul. That is a foul. What are they doing? Like he said, he's very honest with what he sees, and I was glad to hear that he said that they let him be.
Yeah, he's very honest. It makes the game more entertaining because it's not like someone holding back necessarily. It's more of just him. Like, even in some of the calls, like some of the games, you'll hear the confusion coming out of what he says. Like, that's not a foul, or anything like that. So it's much appreciated. But going back to that point, it just sounds like a couple of cleanups here and there, and then hopefully, we get a well-rounded officiated game. And it should be some good action, honestly. It might be one of the best championship games just in terms of talent and matchups that we've ever had. And it's easy to say that every year, being a league that's only been around for 8 years, 9 years if you want to count 2020. 9 years if you want to count 2020. But I feel like definitely this year is. I mean, let me ask you. Being around since 2017, and I feel like I ask you this every time you're on the show, but like, how much do you feel like this league has like changed and grown, looking back at 2017, maybe even looking back at 2018, your first title game, to this summer where we are back to 8 teams again, but the talent level is off the charts?
So I want to say this to get to the first part of your question. This might be, I'd have to go back and look and think about it, the most declarated game in terms of, you're going to have the 2-time MVP is in this game.
Yeah.
Last year's fourth man and newcomer of the league is in this game. This year's fourth man and newcomer of the league are in this game. The defensive player of the year is in this game. Just about every award you can think of is in this game from this year and last year. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, Mike won the MVP last year. Nas won newcomer of the year last year. Nas won fourth man of the year last year. Montrez won newcomer of the year this year. Lance won fourth player of the year this year. Sean is defensive player of the year this year. Like,
and not to mention like all the all-stars in this game. Amir's also won 2 chips. I mean, there's a lot of hardware.
Amir's won 2 chips. This year, Lance is an all-star. Mike is an all-star. Montrez is an all-star. Nas is an all-star. Mario's a champion.
Sean was an all-star. Body Bag was an all-star last year. Like, it's a lot of hardware.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. In terms of how the league has changed, I was talking to our owners, and they were asking me about the difference between this year and the first year and how the league has grown. And I said that first year, what made that year special, especially as somebody traveling with the league, man, that was like a rock star tour.
Yeah.
Like, it was, starting with Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson is a rock star. Like, he is. He's, Mike says the phrase, your favorite player's favorite player. Iverson is your favorite celebrity's favorite celebrity. You know what I mean? Like, Iverson is a rock star. Then we had Allen Iverson. We had Mike Bibby. We had Kenyon Martin. We had Steven Jackson. We had Al Harrington. You had Chauncey Billups. You just had Jermaine O'Neal. And then the next year you add Amari Stoudemire, Baron Davis, Drew Gooden, and the names was so much bigger. But that being said, those guys were way later in their career and weren't active. So while we had Iverson, that wasn't Iverson. We had Kenyon Martin, that wasn't K Martin. We had Mike Bibby, that wasn't my guy Bib. So you see what I'm saying? Like, we had the names and the star power, which sold tickets, and we were selling out every city we went to, and the fans were happy to see the guys, and it was good. But those guys were not, they were shells of themselves at that point in their career. Now, people coming to see Michael Beasley, and guess what? That's still Michael Beasley. People coming to see Montrezl Harrell. That's still Montrezl Harrell.
That's a great point.
Nas is in his prime right now as we speak. Joe Johnson, before he got injured, was still his first 2 games. He scored 30 points both of those games. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're coming to see a guy right now and they're on the big 3, they're probably about as good as they ever were. You know what I mean? So I feel like the play of the league has gotten drastically better. The star name, nah, it's not even close. What it was, but the play is, a guy like body bag. So you say, does he? I mean, he never touched the NBA, and I don't even know what he did for college. But I know that right now he's at the height of his career. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I know he's doing things that those 40-year-old guys wasn't doing. He's windmilling and doing all this off a vert. Like, so, the names aren't the same star power, but the actual basketball itself has improved drastically.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very solid point because, I mean, you're right. There were a ton of great names, and I think even people are pulling up to games for nostalgic purposes, but it did feel like a little bit like how Yankee Stadium always has like the old timers game. Maybe like other leagues and teams do this, but they always have like the old timers games, and they bring in guys that are like historic to their franchises, like winning and doing well. Yeah. It kind of felt like that, like especially I would say like not even so much 2018, but 2017 felt a little bit like that for sure. Nowadays, it feels like you're getting guys that are like you're getting a good mix of like prominent names that have played over time in the NBA or had big careers overseas or done whatever they've done to be a professional. Mixed in with guys that like maybe you're not as familiar with, and now you're like, oh man, like I need to go watch more clips of them and see what they've been doing their whole career because this is insane. I've never heard of them. So
yeah, I think it all worked out the way it should have been because season one you needed that. Like and the season one was a whole different vibe. Like I said, we were coming to a city near you, and it was the big three. So you're talking about Ice Cube, then you're talking about Dr. J, then you're talking about Charles Oakley, Gary Payton. So it was so many legends. And I remember when they used to. The difference was when they would do the starting lineups or the introductions, the resumes were different. It was 7-time All-Star, Jermaine O'Neal, 5-time All-Star, Amir Johnson.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Kenyon Martin, All-Star, Mike Bibby. This guy was the number 2 pick, and the introductions were way longer because the Chauncey Billups, the awards were so much more. Yeah. And that's what you needed to do to get people in the door, and we did. You know what I'm saying? They got people in the door and they sold tickets. And then you transition into, you start adding some other names and some younger players. And then, for example, you brought in a David Hawkins, who didn't have the name, but David Hawkins was still in his basketball prime. He still had a lot left in the tank. And you mixed in a David Hawkins. Then you added a Frank Nitti one year. And it's just like, whoa. He never played in the NBA. And it's just like, nah, but he's got something to prove. And he did a good job, and he came in and 2 years later, he was a captain of the team, and he's still in the league now. Then you added a Mike Taylor, and so you probably never heard of Mike Taylor or Frank Nitti or David Hawkins, but then you got to see them mixed in. That triplets team that went to the championship was David Hawkins, Amari Stoudemire, and Jermaine O'Neal and Nate Robinson. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That mixture of players, like that's pretty cool to see.
I mean, even like, not to harp on your opponent or anything, but even looking at this triplets team, right? It's like you got Montrezl Harrell and you had Jay Rich, you had Dr. J as your coach, and you mix in guys like Nas and Brandon Moss and
Chris Allen and Amir Johnson.
Yeah. So it's a nice little mix there, and I think it does in some ways like not only appreciate like everyone's career who's done it for a long time, but also makes you too like, man, I really want to root for the guy that I haven't heard of too much because. Like I said, like a lot of my friends aren't necessarily invested in the league like I am, but I'll tell them like this guy he goes by Body Bag because he he's known for posterizing people and like ending people and zips them up, and they got a glimpse of that. And they're like, oh man, I can't wait for him to do that again, whatever the case might be. So I think you're right. Like the way they did everything is just gone about it the right way, and like now we're seeing like very competitive championships lined up. With a bunch of different names from a bunch of different, walks of life. So
it's fun to watch, and you look at each team kind of has like its own story. We'll use enemy. I think they're called enemies. LA Riot. Sorry, I still go by the old team names because I see the jerseys in my head. The LA Riot, for example, you're talking about a Dwight Howard. So you're taking the top 75 player of all time. You're mixing him with a Jordan Crawford who basketball people consider one of a pure and elite scorer. Non-basketball fans aren't big on Jordan Crawford, but everybody knows basketball knows who Jordan Crawford is.
Right.
You add in Wesley Johnson, who was a top 5 pick in the NBA. Then you mix in Mike Taylor, who's the first guy to ever go from the G League to the NBA. And then Elijah Stewart, who's a USC guy. He's younger. He's still athletic, but never played in the NBA. And you just put that in a pot and stir it all up. And it's just like, wow, okay. Like the starting lineup is one guy that's top 75 all time, one guy who's underrated and slept on, and another guy who never played in the NBA. And that's their starting lineup. And then they bring off the bench a guy that most people never heard of and a guy that was considered a top 5 player in the draft. And it's just like, that's all, like, that's the big three.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, like you said, you know, the team that we're going to play, Triplets, is a guy who's should be in the NBA right now, and mix him up with 2 20-year-olds that are on YouTube.
Yeah.
And throw in a vet like Amir Johnson, who's done 10 plus years in the NBA, and then sprinkle in Chris Allen. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's pretty wild roster.
Yeah, each team is like that. You know what I mean? It's just a mixture of guys who played in the NBA, a couple guys who didn't. You know, and that's what the big three is, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I hope that other people see it that way too, like real basketball junkies see it that way too, and hopefully we come to a point in time where we're back to 12 teams and maybe more. But for the time being, it was definitely like a really enjoyable season, and you know I'm excited for what's to come this upcoming weekend. Because by the way, like, do we still consider like for instance, like with Three's Company in Miami, like is that like considered like part of the same franchise, or is it just like, is Miami 305 a completely different franchise from Three's Company? Like, do you
in terms of what do you mean? Like what? Like for the record books, you mean per se?
Yeah, I guess so. Like, do you look back at Miami's like franchise history and think, okay, when they used to be Three's Company, this is what they've done, this is who's played for them, etc. Or do you look back at it like, this is Miami's first year, the record books are being made this season, you know, first title appearance rather than like third title appearance, things like that?
Well, I think the experts on that are me and you, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
fair
we
enough.
would be the one that makes that decision. You know, you're the guy who's been covering this league from day one. I'm a guy who's been here from day one. And I think me and you are probably two of the most, invested people in the league on that nerdy side.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, we're the guys who, I know who was on this team year one, that team. You know, there's not many of us that do that. You know what I mean? This
Definitely.
isn't the NBA, so there's probably, and then I would throw CJ in there. You know what I mean?
CJ for sure.
Guys that is just like, I know everything, every team, every year, what player was on what team. It's not many of us, so we'd be the experts on that. And I fully will always identify with Three's Company.
I would too.
There's, especially considering this was the exact same team. It'd be one thing if it was like, you know, 305 came in and said, we're starting from scratch, knew everything. Coop's still here, Mario's still here, Mike's still here, I'm still here, Reggie's still here. Sean, we were all Three's Company. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's no more than, you know, any other expansion team type of thing, you know.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. Like, I'm sitting right here, it's Three's Company. And that's not coming down. And there's one on the other side, and there's one on the other side, and it's Three's Company. And after this is done, I'm gonna put those 305 jerseys up right here the same way.
Yeah. I've been thinking that too. It's been a question I've been wanting to ask Cube if I ever get the chance, but because I'd be interested to hear his take on it. But I kind of look at it the same way. It's just like, I think when I see posts and things like that from the league, or, you know, maybe from people outside looking in, people talk about it a little bit differently, and it's kind of hard to think that way. Like, I don't look at, like, for instance, I got Joe Johnson's jersey posted up here, and I got an Aliens jersey posted up here, right? Like, I look at like triplets. I mean, the league just recently posted a video of like the triplets, you know, from their 2019 days and when they won it all and things like that. But then there's times where I feel like LA isn't associated to the enemy's team from last year, whatever the case may be, right? So like, in this instance, I'm thinking like a Dusan Bullet. He's part of an Aliens team that, you know, that was an older franchise. You don't connect it to anybody because they didn't move on, right? But a Joe Johnson's Triplets team should still be connected to the Chicago Triplets team. It just goes down in their history of like, oh, they didn't used to have city-affiliated teams. So they just
Triplets
used to be
is the
triplets.
only one Triplets is the only one that's a little weird to me because LA to me is enemies. You know why it's enemies? Because it's Nicky, there's Jordan Crawford, it's Elijah Stewart. Like, that's literally the same team. Trilogy is Trilogy, literally. I don't even know what their connection to DMV. That's just weird. Same jersey, same color. It's Stack. It's Earl Clark. Same jersey. That's Trilogy. We're 305, same thing. The triplet thing is where it gets a little weird. So, like, this team is triplets. I don't know. I see Dr. J and I think
Tri-State. Yeah.
Tri-State.
But what about Boston?
And the colors are the same. And then on the flip side of that, when I hear triplets, the first thing that always comes to my mind when I hear triplets is going to be Joe Johnson, followed by Lisa Leslie, and then even Pargo and the Pargo brothers. That's what I think of when I think of triplets. So what kind of throws me off with triplets is just like, oh, this year if I said, hey, we're playing triplets in the finals, I think you would think, oh, Joe Johnson in them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you'd be like, no, Dr. J. You'd be like, no, Dr. J is Tri-State. You see what I'm saying? So they're the one that's a little bit different because I kind of feel like Detroit is that old triplets team.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. But you don't look at Boston that way?
Boston Ball Hogs. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
That's just a completely different team from what they used to be.
The weird thing about the Ball Hogs, maybe it's just that name. It's like they've been irrelevant the first 7 years. They switched it. They added Gary Payton. They're still irrelevant. So something about that Ball Hogs thing. Like I don't know what it is. It's like they just can't get to the playoffs to save their life. Like any way you slice it, it don't matter. I mean, Gary Payton was the coach of the year and the champion last year. He took over Ball Hogs, and at one point they looked like one of the better, and they still can't make the playoffs. So something about Ball Hogs, and I don't know, some jerseys, those colors, those names, something, but
it's
they just not making the playoffs no matter who the coach is or what city you want, what you want to call them.
It's a cursed franchise. I don't know what it is. I mean, even this year just felt like the improbable happened. So, that's so funny. Anytime Ball Hogs is brought up, that's just like the first thing you think about. All right. On that note, I want to say appreciate your time. Good luck to you guys this weekend. Rooting for you guys. I know that you guys have been working hard at this and are back with a vengeance and want to win that first trophy after being to a few different games with the same different guys. So appreciate the time and best of luck to you guys. I'm looking forward to the championship this weekend and safe travels getting there.
Thank you. Are you coming to the championship game?
Nope. I will be my first year in 6 years. I haven't been to a game. So
it's tough.
Bittersweet. It's tough. Life changes, things happen. I'll be back next year.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you as always, and thanks for having me at any time. And hopefully we talk again soon. And I got another piece of hardware sitting right here next to me. Man.
Yes.
Trying to figure out where I'm gonna put it. where I want to put that trophy. I have somewhere in mind for it though. Don't let that worry you.
I'm looking forward to it. Next time we'll see
right.
it posted in the background. But appreciate it. And
thank you.
Yep.